Welcome, guys. I'm Dr. Mike Hansen, a board-certified physician specializing in internal medicine, pulmonary disease, and critical care medicine. Now, I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of COVID patients between the intensive care unit, doing pulmonary consults in the hospital, as well as in the pulmonary clinic. But I also want to bring in someone, my best friend, who is also a doctor. He's a psychiatrist, and he had COVID, and then he later got the vaccine, and then later on he got COVID again, presumably the Delta variant. So here he is. Welcome, Dr. Hisbe Ali.
Thanks, Dr. Hansen, for having me. I just want to say I'm a big fan. You do a great job of giving information out to people, good public health service. So I appreciate it. I am one of those people that got COVID and then presumably Delta, despite getting the vaccine in between. What happened was I was working in an emergency department in New York, and at the time when the COVID broke out, so March last year was when it picked up, and I got sick around April. And at the time, I really just had mild symptoms. I'm an otherwise healthy guy. I'm a runner, so I'm in pretty good shape. And all I had was loss of smell for about 10 days and some muscle weakness for really a few days. And I didn't really even know I had it. I was still actually going to work at that time. So after that, about 6-7 months later is when they had the vaccine come out, and I got the vaccine. I had gotten Moderna and the 2 doses. It was about December last year. Things were fine. I had no problems, no issues with the vaccine whatsoever. And then last month, I ended up getting the Delta variant, presumably, because I was really, really sick. And I know how it happened. I was out at a Led Zeppelin tribute band concert. No one was wearing masks. Everyone was out. They were celebrating kind of the reopening of these clubs. So I was probably exposed to a really high viral load, I think, at this concert, because 2 days later is when I just went down. And I felt like my lungs were on fire. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even walk up the stairs, let alone go run, 5 to 10 miles. So that was the first time I was like, wow, I've never gotten a lung disease or issue ever in my life. Even when I had the flu before, there was never anything close to this. And I was sick for at least 10 days. I would say 14 days. I was testing positive for COVID. And it was bad. It felt like someone threw acid in my lungs. Couldn't breathe. So that was quite a struggle.
Did you check your oxygen with the pulse ox? Did you check your oxygen?
Yeah, so I did check my pulse ox. And my pulse ox, I checked it a few times, so I don't know how low it actually went. It might have gotten lower at some point. But it was around 95. I think it went 95, 96, which is lower than my usual. But yeah, it went about that low.
Yeah, I mean, for someone who's otherwise healthy with perfect lungs, you should be statting, 98, 99, 100%. So 95% might not seem like it's that much of a drop, but someone who should normally be 100, dropping by 5, that's actually pretty significant.
Yeah.
And that's why we always say, you can't always go by the absolute numbers when it comes to, what's the oxygen level? You have to understand someone's baseline, and then what is their baseline, and then how low are they compared to the baseline? That is significant.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I checked my pulse ox a few times, but I could just tell you, like walking up the stairs, I was out of breath. It was ridiculous. It's never happened to me before. And that's when I was like, wow, this thing is real, and even healthy people that are vaccinated can get it.
The thing about you is that you weren't just vaccinated with Moderna. You actually had COVID plus 2 doses of the Moderna vaccine. So at that point already, your antibodies should have already been through the roof. And some people will say, the vaccine didn't work. It's actually quite the opposite. Because had you not had the vaccine, you probably would have been super sick as a result, like requiring hospitalization, possibly intensive care unit, possibly long COVID, possible death. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. The vaccine, again, it was ago, right? So it does raise a question of what my antibody titers were. But again, I already had COVID once. I got the 2 shots a month apart. So I thought I was protected. I actually didn't take it that seriously. That's why I went to this concert. I didn't think I was going to get it. And I didn't think, it was that big of an issue. Obviously, I should have watched more of your videos. But once I got it, I was like, this has to be real. And then I tested, I went to CVS drive-through and I got a bunch of COVID tests, and it was tested positive immediately, very high counts also. So that's when I was like, okay, it's serious. And I think the 10-day course of dexamethasone is kind of what really saved me, as well as probably being vaccinated from ending up in the hospital.
But you're a living example of, why exactly people should, get the vaccine,
Absolutely.
even if they're young and healthy.
I mean, look, I run over 100 miles a month. I'm a really active guy. I'm really healthy. I have no medical problems. Like I said, I've actually never really gotten sick with anything, including the flu. I've never gotten sick. So for me to end up, almost bedridden in my own house where I couldn't even walk was the big wake-up call. And when I'm a living example of the fact that A, young, healthy people can definitely get it, and B, the vaccine protected me from ending up in the hospital. And as you probably know, young, healthy people, unvaccinated, are getting intubated.
Yep.
So I think the vaccine helped me in that regard. And also, of course, the steroid treatment for 10 days. Yeah.
I will say this. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of COVID patients. I've yet to see a single vaccinated person actually die from COVID. Now, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but out of the hundreds, if not thousands of patients that I've seen, I've not seen it happen. I've also not seen someone end up in the hospital as a result of getting the vaccine.
Right.
Like I'm yet to see an anaphylactic reaction. Again, I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm just saying I haven't seen that. I haven't seen someone end up in the hospital as a different result of the vaccine, such as myocarditis, such as Guillain-Barré syndrome, such as thrombosis and thrombocytopenia. So all these things that you hear as potential things that can happen with the vaccine that are incredibly rare, higher chance of being struck by lightning than these things happening. But yeah, I see, this past 10-day stretch that I worked in the intensive care unit, every day, more and more COVID cases. I personally had 5 COVID patients that I was seeing every day in the intensive care unit.
Wow.
And one person died. Actually, that guy, he didn't even believe in COVID. He actually didn't believe in COVID, and he thought that he was in the hospital because he caught pneumonia because he was forced to wear a mask.
Wow.
And he literally died not knowing or not believing that he had COVID.
Yeah, I am a living proof. I had it. So I've already had this conversation with my patients. I clearly tell my patients to get the vaccine. And when they question me, I tell them, look, I got Delta. I got COVID the first time. I most likely got the Delta variant as well. And if it wasn't for being vaccinated, I probably would have been in the hospital despite being super healthy and never having any respiratory problems ever in my life. So what else could explain me getting this sick? It's not the flu. It's not the cold. I've never had those problems.
Well, here's the thing is that what most people or a lot of people don't get is that you could do everything. You could be perfectly healthy. Let's say you're 18 years old, 21 years old, and you work out an hour every day and you eat nothing but the healthiest food and you get 8-9 hours sleep every night and you don't have a lot of stress. Even that person can still die of COVID. The chances are less likely. The more of those things that you do, the more overall you're in good health, the less likely you're going to die of COVID. But you're not guaranteed of that.
Yeah.
And so here's what most people don't get is that even you take that 20-year-old person who's perfectly healthy, who does all those things, their risk of dying from COVID is still higher than the risk of something bad happening from the vaccine. Yeah. Even though their risk of having a bad illness from COVID is still extremely low for that person that I just described, it's still way higher than having a bad outcome from the vaccine.
Absolutely. I mean, that seems to be one of the biggest barriers, and especially with my patients who come in, I've seen a variety of reasons that they don't want to get the vaccine. Some people are conspiracy theorists, of course, no matter what you say, they're never going to believe you. Some people, they just don't have the right information. So that is a little bit frustrating.
I think it has to do with freedom, and I'm not going to do what the government says. I think that's what it comes down to.
That's definitely a big part of it. I think if you look around the world, most people, they're itching to get the vaccine. They're looking at us like, hey, you guys have all these extra vaccines that are lying around.
The irony, sorry, because you said that, I got to jump in. The irony of what you just said is the person who's editing this video right now is actually in South Africa, and he is about to get his COVID vaccine, and he's super excited about it. And he's probably laughing right now as he's editing this video. So to your point, it's exactly that.
Yeah. And look, we have data, right? Like Israel's ahead, right? I think Israel's ahead where they went ahead with the booster, they got scientific data, and their COVID rates have dropped, right? That's like actual data. So if we want to look up to a country and say, hey, who's doing it right? I think Israel's doing it right. They're a smaller population, So I think that it's easier for the government to kind of, get people on board. They're more, well-informed probably, and maybe they don't have as many opinion news things and entertainment things that distract them from actually seeking out real data. You know what I mean? As a doctor, I can live with saying, hey, this is FDA approved. The data shows this. Yeah, in a rare event, if something happens, there's no way to know 100%, but the data shows that the vaccine is safe, the vast majority of the time. Versus, like you said, getting COVID like I did, and I got COVID, that was scary. There actually were a couple days during that stretch of the 10 days where I thought I might end up in the hospital and be intubated and or die. I was actually really, really scared. That thought is more scary than getting a vaccine. I've gotten 20 vaccines probably in my life, even more, traveling around the country. My mom is a pediatrician. I got every vaccine in the book as a child. Nothing ever happened to me. Like I said, I've been the healthiest person. I've never gotten sick. I've never been in the hospital. So vaccines work.
So you believe in modern medicine?
Yeah, and let me also say one more thing that I think is proves that the vaccine actually works. Well, again, I got the Delta because I went to a concert, packed concert. No one was wearing masks. Right when in the middle of the Delta breakout in Nevada, but no one was wearing masks, and I probably got exposed to a huge viral load. Right, so I got sick. Plus, I was out late night, so my immune system was probably stressed out. So I got sick. I come home. I live with my girlfriend. Right, she's also vaccinated. She was only exposed to really me. That was symptomatic. We both got tests from CVS. I tested positive, like I said, more than 10 days, 2 weeks straight. She tested herself the same time I tested myself. I did about 6-7 tests in that 14 days. So did she. She never tested positive. Why? She's vaccinated, and she was only exposed to one person. So it is protected. I went and got exposed to probably 100 people.
Yep.
That may have had it. Definitely quite a few in a packed crowd. So that goes to show that if you're vaccinated, yes, you're probably going to be exposed to a few people here, a few people there in the course of your daily life, but it is protective. She never got it.
That's why I was so confident getting the vaccine when it first came out, when I got my vaccine in December and the second shot in January. Why? Yeah. People were saying, oh, it's so courageous. No, it's because I believed in the science and I believed in the medicine. Yeah. And I have the ability to break down a study, a trial, a randomized controlled trial, and analyze it, and then feel confident about, what it's showing. And I believed in it, and that's why I got it. And I wasn't scared at all.
I think people forget that in the last 100 years, since we've had antibiotics and vaccines, that our life expectancy has also doubled. And I know they want to call out doctors and scientists as conspiracy, part of a conspiracy, but in reality, I'm actually surprised how amazing science is in terms of our lifespan, despite the fact that we're actually sicker with more chronic illnesses such as diabetes and cancer because of our poor diet and poor, lifestyle choices. That's actually a great achievement of science, that it's enabled us to live as longer than we used to be 100 years ago by almost twice as long, despite all these chronic conditions. So I tip my hat to the scientists and doctors, actually, and we should thank them. Sometimes science does make mistakes, of course. You know what I mean? But that's few and far between compared to how much benefit science has actually provided to people. So perspective is always a good thing.
Yeah, definitely science gets it right more often than it gets it wrong. So.
Yeah. In the beginning of the COVID outbreak, I can actually understand people being a little bit suspicious. But now, it's been over a year and a half. We've got enough data, right, to show that this happened. And we have other countries as models to look after, to see what happened when they actually followed through with vaccinations. So there really is no excuse now.
Have a good night. Glad you're better. And thanks for coming on tonight.
I want to thank you actually for doing a great job and just trying to educate people so they make informed decisions about it.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks again, man. I am going to wrap this up and get some sleep.
You too, Mike. Rest up. Talk to you next time.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
All right. Peace out.